Good morning, Honorable Prime Minister, members of Cabinet, ladies and gentlemen of the Diplomatic Corps, ladies and gentlemen. The Amaila Falls project has been on the cards for well over 15 years. We believe we're very close now to making it a reality. It is a transformational project. In one project, we have the ability to reduce the cost of electricity significantly, replace the importation of fossil fuels, improve the reliability of our generation system, and significantly contribute to reducing our carbon emissions. Now, we've been working on this project since 2008. In fact, the earliest studies, the feasibilities go back well over 2 decades. Last year, we issued a request for proposals, and we received 4 submissions in September, 3 Chinese companies, 1 Brazilian. Based on the evaluation criteria, the procurement board selected China Rail as having the best overall proposal, and that was largely based on the lowest price per kilowatt hour measured over a 20-year period. By way of background, China Rail is not new to this process. They were the selected EPC contractor back in 2012 when Blackstone, who was then the sponsor, selected them based on an international tender. So China Rail, familiarity with this project with Guyana has been significant. As many of us in Guyana would know, when Blackstone withdrew from the project in August of 2013, the remaining parties in the project agreed to have China Railway step up as a sponsor. This position and the related conditions to China Rail stepping in to sponsor was agreed in late 2014, early 2015 by the IDB and the Kingdom of Norway. In fact, Norway deposited $80 million with the IDB under our low carbon development strategy for this project. In 2015, when the government changed, the APNU AFC government did not pursue the project. And despite an independent evaluation by Norconsult, who concluded that this was still the most economic option. Now, speaking about the RFP process, because transparency is important. In 2021, although we had China Rail still interested in doing the project, the government said, we need to do this transparently. And so we went the public route of retendering it. We made a number of important changes to the structure. Before, we were getting loan funds from the IDB. We were getting money from the LCDS. We were putting in part of the equity. In 2021, the government said, we're not going to put any money into the project. This project has to be financed on its own using private sector funding. And so when we went out with the RFP, we said we're not providing any money. We're looking at a couple of options, either a BOOT, a 20-year BOOT, or a design, build, and finance. We picked China Rail because they had the lowest price, and we picked the BOOT option. So the BOOT option, basically, this project is being built using the BOOT option, the build, own, operate, transfer. It will be funded by China Rail and Chinese institutions. They will own the project. This project will be operated under a concession for 20 years. And at the end of those 20 years, the project will be handed over to the government at no cost. Now, for a renewable project like this to be funded and financed over 20 years by the private sector is a significant achievement. But this project has a long life. It could be 75, 100 years. So we are in essence paying for this project over 20 years. And that average price per kilowatt hour that we are paying based on the response to the RFP is about 7.7 cents. So we're not putting any money. The average price measured over 20 years will be about 7.7 cents. And this cost is largely the repayment of financing. The financing to build this project will be about 700 million. All of that is being provided by the sponsor. And when this project is built and handed over, the operating cost after 20 years will be probably 1.5 cents. So we would have paid for a project over a 20-year period at a very competitive price. And after we get it, the operating cost will be virtually very minimal. So I think this is a great project. Now, what is the scope of this project? Because it's not just a hydro project. It's 165 megawatts of hydro, the plant, all the related works. But it also includes a 270-kilometer double circuit, 230 kV transmission line coming all the way from Amaila to Sophia. Now, that's over 500 kilometers of transmission lines. And right now, the entire transmission system of GPL is just over 200 kilometers. So this is a significant transmission project. We will have 2 substations, one in Linden and one in Georgetown. So we're paying for the power. We're paying for the power delivered into our grid, into our central point in Georgetown. Now, to get this project done, they'll create a reservoir, a 23 square kilometer reservoir. And this project is located just north of the Kaieteur National Park. All of the environmental studies were done many years ago. There's literally thousands and thousands of pages of studies that were done. And the project also includes the cost of upgrading the roads coming from Amaila and the bridges. So this is a project scope that covers everything to get the project into our load center. Now, before we selected China Rail, we issued this RFP, as I mentioned, and we provided everything that we had so that persons who were interested in the project could get all of the documents. We had 19 groups register as interested. We got 4 responses. When I say we provided everything we had all the legal documents, the power purchase agreement, the receivables agreement, the implementation agreement, which outlined the government obligations, the EPC contract, all of these documents, which were pretty much agreed since 2012, we provided as draft documents to potential bidders. We provided all the technical studies, the geotechnical, the hydrology, the environmental, all the feasibility studies. We provided all the licenses, the hydro license, the environmental license permit that we had at that time. all of the environmental studies, resettlement plans, offset plans, legislation, everything, because this project had been prepared to the highest environmental standards. So we provided everything to every potential party who was interested. They had all of this information, and that was what they used to submit their proposals. We had two options. We picked the booth option at the end of the day. So we are not owning the project. The project will be owned by the project company, and they will be selling the power to GPL under a power purchase agreement. We were very detailed in what interested parties had to submit. We needed to make sure that they had the capability and credibility to submit to do this project. We looked at all of the financing. So under this project with China Rail, we're looking at a total capital cost of about $700 million. The actual EPC price, the engineering, procurement, construction price, is just a little over $500 million. But all of the other costs, supervision, interest during construction, development costs, all of that will add up to about $700 million. So the price figure is lower than where we were back in 2015, and that's good. We asked them to look at all of our agreements, and we said, very importantly, we're not making any financial commitments other than to pay for the power under the power purchase agreement. We also said that we will have independent supervision, which will be internationally tendered to review the works that are being done. So we will hire through a public tender a world-class international project supervision firm to ensure that what is being designed and built is built to those standards. We also agreed that we will have an international O&M operator. So when it's built, we will have someone who will be competent to operate this. Now, this is project finance, and this is the project finance structure. So the owner of the project will create an SPV, a special purpose vehicle. That owner will provide the financing, all of the equity, all of the debt. GPL will be the off-taker. So GPL will buy all of the power under a power purchase agreement, secure its payment with a receivables agreement. We will have an independent supervision firm, and the government will issue the hydro license once they've completed all of the proper permitting submissions, and the EPA will issue the environmental permit once they've submitted that. And the government is not guaranteeing the project, they're going to guarantee the performance of GPL. The sponsor will obtain political risk insurance and these sort of things, and the sponsor will have an EPC contract to build this. And we're using the same EPC contract that was developed by Blackstone from 2012. So this is an international contract that was vetted by experts and negotiated over a long period between 2010 and 2012. Now, like any large project, there's a lot of risk in these projects. But most of these risks are being put to the developer. So the construction cost, that's covered by the EPC contract with all the usual checks and balances. So liquidated damages if the project will take longer, protections for all of that. So this is a lump sum price. The geotechnical risk, we're going to stay with the same structure that we had in 2012. The hydrology risk, the GPL will be assuming this. The contract provides for allocation of force majeure risk. GPL will take all of the power from the project, and This project is expected to deliver from the 165 megawatts annual energy of a little over 1,000 gigawatt hours. Now, as we've seen, things have changed a lot in the last few years. So we're looking at the total peak demand of GPL tripling, maybe quadrupling over the next 5 years. So whereas last year we saw a peak demand of 135 megawatts, by 2025, 2026, we're looking at close to 500 megawatts. So this is a tripling, a quadrupling. As I said yesterday, the demand projections generally tend to follow GDP projections. And so as the economy continues to grow rapidly, so too will our demand. So both on the peak demand and on the energy we need, we're seeing a tripling projected in the next 5 years. So this project, along with the gas, will make up the majority of the supply. But as mentioned by the Honorable Prime Minister and Mahinder, wind and solar is also in the cards. So in summing up, we're currently engaged with China Rail in negotiations for this project to start by the 3rd quarter of this year. Under the new structure, we have much better terms than we did in 2015. The developer is taking most of the risk. The government is not making any financial commitments. So there's no money from the IDB, and there's no money from Norway for this project. This is a project being financed by China Rail. We're looking at this project being built over a 3.5-year period. So this project should come online sometime in 2026. As I said, we will ensure that when this project is being built, it is supervised. So we will have a world-class independent supervision firm. Similarly, the operating and maintenance of this plant will be independently tendered. All of the contracts that we're using are world-class contracts. These contracts were developed over many years, between 2010 and 2012, when Blackstone was the sponsor. And Blackstone, as you know, is one of the big private equity funds, and they had just finished the project in Uganda. So these contracts were prepared by experts, they're well tested, and they had the due diligence of all the parties at that time, and international lawyers on both sides vetting them. So we're using these same contracts. All of the potential bidders were given all of the information we had. So the legal documents, the technical documents, all the previous licenses. And in summary, this project, which we expect will start this year and be online by 2026, will deliver 165 megawatts of power into the grid. We'll have an average price over the 20-year period of about 7.7 cents. But that price, that project will have a life of 75 to 100 years. And after the 20 years, we get that free, and we only pay for the operating and maintenance cost. And all of the capital cost to take us to commissioning date is being borne by the developer. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you, Winston. We are continuing to work through project specifics this morning. We got through sun, we got through hydro, and now it's time for us to get through wind. Dr. John Snyder is the Project General Manager of